Hello, 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 and welcome back to A Conversation with JR, the podcast. It's been it's been a little while since I have connected with my audience via podcast. Forgive me, but JR has been busy. 2025 has been a year of me celebrating women of valor. That's what I've been doing, celebrating women in my life, women of valor. If you want to catch that celebration, you can go to my Facebook page, Conversations with JR, or my YouTube channel. These women are women who live by high values, good moral values. They are community activists, mothers, grandmothers, ministers, and I even threw in a politician. So, like I said, if you want to know more about that, you can go to my Facebook page, Conversations with JR, or you can just see some of the interviews on my YouTube channel. Before I get in to today's topic, I just want you to know that Conversations with JR, our mission is to change lives through the power of conversation by providing a supportive space for women and men to overcome emotional caused by dysfunctional relationships. Relationships can also be with family and with friends, not only intimate relationships. And Conversations with JR, we remain committed to the core values of empowerment, faith, healing, and authentic self discovery. So, with that said, today's topic, we are going to be talking about the exit plan. And joining me in this discussion is my dear friend, guest, Randy Rumpf. He is a clinical supervisor, social worker, therapist, LCSW. He is also a community activist and he believes in fighting for the underdog and marginalized people and the undeserved communities. And he is very passionate about the work that he does. So introduce yourself more.
Hi, everyone. So, again, my name is Randy. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, very powerful introduction. So, I am a clinical social worker here in New York and also the founder of Enlighten Him Psychotherapy and Consulting, where we provide mental health services for men that struggle with various challenges. So, currently, I'm a supervisor, therapist, social worker here in New York, and just happy to be here today.
Great. Yeah, and I'm very happy to have you because today's topic that we're going to be talking about is the exit plan. And we have been friends for many of years. And you have given me, so many great techniques and methods, to think about my life and to work through various situations in my life. This exit plan, I want everyone to know that the exit plan, this topic came about when I was talking to Randy about my retirement. And he brought up this thing about an exit plan. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? An exit plan. I want to retire. I was thinking about it's like, when I'm done with work and I want to retire. But as I was looking at the monthly income that I was going to get, then the wheels in my mind started going and he introduced this idea of exit plan. So before we get into this, I want to say this. Randy and myself, we have gone through education, jobs. I won't even say jobs, but we have careers, lifelong careers. Just like some people spend a lifetime building their careers, acquiring higher education and opening a business, chasing their dreams of home ownership and family. And there's nothing wrong with that. But here's a question. If you had to walk away from everything today, business, career, marriage, partnerships, broken hearts, whatever it is, relocation, if you had to do that within 6 months, could you do it? Just think about that. Could you do it? How would you handle the emotional, the physical, and the financial aspect of walking away? And are you prepared? What do you have to say about that?
So I think that, first I want to preface by saying, that again, this is Conversations with J.R. Floyd, where, conversations through education brings healing to those who may encounter hardships and different sorts of things within their life. So this is more of like a discussion, more like it's not so much of a clinical aspect, but more so of a discussion. And so what I wanted to say to that is that, whenever you're planning ahead, whenever you're thinking ahead, right? There is always good to have a plan. So for instance, as J.R. Floyd has mentioned, right? Like you have this idea, whether it be walking. Let's use employment for an instance, right? So let's say you're walking away from employment, you're walking away from like a specific situation, right? It is better to have a plan in place of how you will accomplish that and how you will go about it, right? You don't want to put your space without a plan or go without a plan, because then if you don't have a plan, you technically can set up yourself for putting yourself in some type of emergency situation, some type of crisis, or even not knowing where you want to go. That can actually lead to a kind of failure. And I say the word failure because what happens in without like a specific plan, or without a plan, there is like no form of direction. So then now you're in a space where like your back is against the wall, and then all these other things are technically happening to you. So what I will say to that is, it's always good to have a plan, and this is where the whole idea of, whether it be exit plan, transition plan, whatever it may be, which we'll talk more about, it's always good to have those things in place.
You know what? For the matter of the audience that's listening, can we just define what is an exit plan and who needs one?
Right. So again, with the background in social work, for instance, right, planning has always been something for us. But the idea of like an exit plan was something that was used in businesses back then for entrepreneurs who wanted to kind of get out of, like the business will start something new or probably retire, right? So they started using this that was called this exit plan, where they would ensure that there's like a smooth transition, like there's like a smooth transfer before leaving that space. So the exit plan is really, look at it as a roadmap to going to that specific goal, going to that end goal, whatever that is. Look at it as a roadmap and putting things along that road that you have to do to get there. So the analogy that I often tend to want to use is like, look at it as going on a road trip, right? And you're going on a road trip, you have a car, you fill it up with gas, right? During the space of going to that road trip to that destination, you definitely have to stop and fill it up a couple times before you get where you're going, right? So look at it as like the exit plan would be something similar as a road trip, right? Where you have a roadmap, there's an end result, and then along that way you have to stop and accomplish specific things before you get to that destination.
Absolutely right. Great example. Absolutely great example. In the days and the times when we have these technology, GPS, even with the GPS, sometimes we see ourselves getting off road and we have to recalibrate and get back on. And then you often say, why are we going the longer route when there is a shorter route? So that is a great example. Like I said, I am looking towards retirement and looking forward to it. But then I started realizing that, the funds for retirement, and I see a lot of people who are struggling, with a fixed income. And I know that I have options. That's the good thing about me, is that I have options, but I never thought about how am I going to fit these options in my exit plan? Because when I retire, I want to retire from punching a time clock and running up and down and, the regular things that you do for a plan. But I also still want to be active in life. But I also want to bring in some extra income without having to go out there again and look for a part-time job or do something that I just don't want to do just to bring in income. So like I said, I have options that I can plug into this exit plan, such as substitute teaching. I'm building my brand Conversations with JR with an LLC. I got a certification to teach ESL online because I want to make the schedule my own. So here's another question that we're going to pose to our guests. Okay. How to prepare for this exit plan, like how to prepare and when should this person get started? For example, like I said, I want to retire. I'm looking at what's going on now. I discussed this. I'm thinking about it. My exit plan is going to take me 2 years. It could take a year. The way I look at it now, my exit plan is going to take to ride my retirement 2 years. So my question again to you, Randy, is how to prepare and when should the person get started?
So I think with any decision you're about to make, like with an exit plan, it's always the first step I would always say is start with reflection, start with discernment, right? Figure out what that end goal is. What is the goal that you want to accomplish? So for instance, like in your space right now, it's like kind of like, okay, you reflected, you become aware of things you want, right? The main goal is retirement. So now you're like looking, okay, I need to create this plan for when I retire, right? So similar with that, to actually create the plan would be kind of reflection. Figure out like what is the end goal? What do you want? What do you see yourself? So for instance, similar as like a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan or like a 1-year plan, right? You have to kind of have a specific goal in mind. And when you do that, the next step with creating the exit plan is kind of putting it down on paper, right? Because sometimes we think about these things, we think about, oh, well, maybe I want to retire, and these are the steps that I have to do. But unless you put that down on paper of, okay, this is a timeline. So in 1 year from now, I want to retire. You write that down on paper, and then what are the steps that I need in order to get to that retirement? So I would say reflection, and then after putting it down on paper for sure, putting it down on paper, and then setting like realistic goals. So realistic goals in the sense of, okay, if if the age of retirement, let's just say someone wants to retire at 50, right? Then okay, do you have, enough savings? Are you able to get by within once you retire, right? So you want to really set realistic goal. Whereas okay, I'm planning to retire in 1 year, but on one hand, you can't really meet that goal in 1 year. So maybe you need to extend it to 2 years, right? So setting very realistic goals, a reflection, writing, setting realistic goals, but just having that end
Mhm.
goal there and just working towards that.
All right.
And also to
Go
note
ahead.
to note too with the exit plan is that, these things can change. Like this is a
Yeah.
contract, and while it is good to kind of try to stick to that, sometimes, life happens, thing comes up, as you reflect more, you might get more clarity on certain things, and maybe you might have to change it. But it's always good to kind of revisit that maybe every 3 months, every 6 months, every
Mm.
year, and kind of see where you are, assess where you are, and then continue going.
This is awesome. This is awesome because the first thing I'm sitting here and I'm writing my notes because I'm getting ready to prepare for my exit plan vision board. I have a regular vision board for all of my other things, but this is going to be just specifically designed for my retirement exit plan. And so I love this because number one, you said when I asked the question, uh, how to prepare and when to start, you said first thing is reflection. What is the end goal? What is the real end goal? Be specific about the goal. Write down the goal and the timeline, and then what are the steps? Be realistic about the goals. Ask questions about the goals, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm doing a lot of interviewing, and I'm talking to a lot of people, and I'm doing a lot of research about this. Like you said, we have to revisit the goals, extend the goals, make adjustments, and revisit the plan, and really stick with it. And I'm very excited about, this part of my life because I know now what it is that I have to do, how I have to do it, where I'm going and what I need to do to get there. So that is amazing. I'm definitely going to write those points down on my Facebook page, after I post this podcast.
Yeah. So
Question.
just wanted to give, well, just a real life example. So for instance, just based on what I just spoke about, with writing it down in reflection. So when I first started as a social worker, I was mostly working with children, right? I was working in preventative services, kind of
Yes.
trying to prevent kids from entering the foster care system, and then doing like a lot of home visits, and mostly working with kids and families. But I knew then and then that this was something that I enjoyed, but it was not something that I see long term that I wanted to continue pursuing. So what I did, with the reflection, I reflected and I said, okay, this is not where I see myself in a year, and what am I going to do about it? Right? Just bear in mind this was during the time of COVID. We were home, we were working from home. There was a lot of time was happening, right? So what I did, I reflected and I recognized that substance use was something that I wanted to work in, and I wanted to work in a hospital settings. During the time, what I did was part of my plan was that from 2019 to 2020, what am I going to do? So during that time, my exit plan was I need to figure out a way. I need to change the population I'm working with. I want to work with adults. And these were some of the things in my notes. Wanted to work with adults. I wanted to work like a nine to five. I wanted to work in a hospital setting, right? I was very specific in things that I wanted to do. This was like, but again, this was the main issue was like, well, I want to work in substance use, but I haven't really no experience working in substance use. I wanted to work with adult psychiatric, there was limited experience. So during that time, my part of my exit plan was actually doing all the trainings that I could find online, or doing all the trainings I could find, on substance use, and I really picked out really good ones that I did. And this was able to transfer over to my resume. I was able to get some experience in the substance use, and then applied for positions in the hospital setting working with substance use. But again, it took a year because again, I was doing the trainings, I was setting up myself, I was applying, I was getting rejections, but I was also getting acceptance, right? So that's part of the process that I wanted to share.
Hey, you know what? This is great because I remember that journey because I remember the first place that you applied to. We were on vacation in California. And
Mhm.
you were on your computer and you were I think you was either filling out the application or you was doing something towards the first hospital job that, you applied for. But the reason why I brought that part up is because you were determined. And even while we were on vacation, you took some time to, like you said, to work on that goal and to work on that plan and to stay focused.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with exit plans with just in general, right? Like being consistent, right? Like there are some days you might not feel as determined, there are some days you might not feel as consistent, right? But I think that, continue to be persistent in going for that goal. And I wish that I can tell you, just as the example I use with the car, right? And going on a road trip. The road would not be smooth. You're gonna have the highways, you're gonna have the local roads, you're gonna have detours, you're gonna have road bumps, you're gonna have potholes, you're gonna have all these things, but at the end of the day,
Construction.
yeah, at the end of the day that, this is where you wanna go, this is where you wanna be, and if it means going through some of these potholes, if it means, going on a detour, if it means not getting there at the time you wanted to get there, that's all okay. The thing is that you keep your eyes on that specific goal and you continue to work there, right? So going back into even like that example that I had shared there, I knew that I wanted to work in, substance use recovery, right? But from where I am to where the perfect place that I wanted to work was, in the same borough that, I live. But then the opportunity came up. It was in a whole different borough. It was about 2 hours each way. It was a lot, right? But again, it was about me chasing this and saying, okay, I can do this and I can stay here 3 years and then I can create another plan. So it's all about updating the plan and just being open as time goes on. It's not going to be smooth. I wish I can say that it will be smooth.
No, I no, I'm really, really glad that you said that because it's sometimes when we write these things down and we get started and we get excited and, we're on our way and then, you get into it and then, like you said, there's a setback, there's a bump in the road, we have to revisit, we have to make adjustments. Sometimes people lose their passion and they lose steam and they get stressed out and sometimes like there's a real setback that make you probably have to put that you know the exit plan on hold for a little bit, but always make sure that you're going to go back and revisit. And while you said that, you were talking about certain things, you know and I have down here like the common mistakes when creating um, an exit plan. And for me, it's like waiting too long to plan, lack of research and support. Not and you said the main thing, not planning realistic goals or goals that are unachievable. Realistic goals and goals that are unachievable because we want things to happen. People want things to happen right away, like me with the LLC and setting up to sell my own books. It is not happening as fast as I want it to happen, but it is happening because I do see progress. I do see progress. There's a lot, I made the list, like you said, reflection. I made the list. My first thing was I need to upgrade my technology.
Mhm.
I know that I needed to set up a home office. Started doing a lot of research. I need to set up my home office. I needed to invest money in technology, which I have and I'm still doing. I needed to do those things in order to move forward to the goals that I want. I want flexibility. I want to make up my own schedule, and I want to use the skills that I already have, which is teaching, which is doing workshops with people, writing, consulting. I want to use the skills that I already have. And so, can you just reflect on that or talk about, like, what are some of the common mistakes that you think people may encounter when creating an exit plan?
I think I think there's a lot. So I think the first thing is defining the specific goal, what that is, right? Like creating like the realistic goal. So I think some of the mistakes that people do make would be, and would be kind of number one, there is like the goal, and there's not enough research on specific things. So let's say if you're like, I'm using like your example, if your example is retirement, right? Maybe there has to be some research on retirement and what's needed. Did I meet the age? Did I meet the amount of years that's required, right? And creating that based on research, right? The
Mhm.
other thing that I think tends to happen is that, sometimes life happens, right? And sometimes we may want to accomplish things, let's say for 6 months, but it might make 12 months, right? So I think sometimes, there is the aspect of patience where sometimes it can take a lot of patience to kind of work towards that goal. And then, kind of motivating yourself to just kind of go forward and continue to do what you have to do. So there is a lack of research. There is not like a specific goal that is like realistic, right? So for instance, like when creating the goal, you want to make sure like you use SMART goals, so something that is specific, something that you could measure, something that is
Mhm.
more, like achievable, something that is relevant, something that is time bound, right? So like you using SMART goals in the sense of it has to be realistic. So sometimes there's not the research, there's like the lack of reflection in terms of seeing really what you want to do. And then there is also the whole idea about, where you want to go with it. So I think there is a lot to do with the exit plan. I think just not really understanding what an exit plan is
Right.
in terms of with this. But I do think though there is something to mention in the sense of there are two things, and I think we can, talk about this in the next podcast. But there's a transition plan, and then there's also an exit plan, right? So
Wow.
you want to kind of ensure kind of like what are you doing. So for instance, the exit plan would be, something like, let's say like, like retirement would be a good, exit plan, right? It's like a transfer, it's like a retirement, it's like you're finished,
Yes.
right? A transitional plan might be something where, as I was mentioning, like, yes, it's not the end goal is retirement, right? But you still have, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years to get there. But you don't see yourself remaining in that specific company. You don't see yourself working in that space for 7 years. So maybe
Right.
you create a transitionary plan, like what I did when I was like, okay, I was like, okay, this specific organization, I need to move on from there. That was a transitionary plan. I'm not there to retire yet. So then what happens? You create a plan for the next 3 years before the retirement. So you just want to kind of see what a transition versus exit plans.
Wow, you just blew my mind with that because the transition plan. So would you say for me right now, would you say that I am in transitioning to make the exit plan, or is it a combination of both?
I mean, it could be a combination of both because the thing with the exit plan could be kind of like the final goal. And if the final goal is retirement, right? But let's say you still have 5 years, let's say to retire, for instance, right? And just, using a number. So let's say you have 5 years.
Yes.
But where you are now, you're like, okay, I'm not happy there. I can't see myself being there for 5 years. Then you create a transitionary plan. And the transitionary plan might be, okay, I need to maybe seek employment somewhere else. Maybe I need to do something different, right? And you create a transition plan. And then when you get to that space, let's say the part of transition plan is okay, I'm going to work somewhere else. You work there until you meet the exit plan, which is the retirement. So you can go from transition to exit.
And I just love that you're throwing you're throwing this out there because yes, my ultimate goal is the retirement. And of course, I'm going to continue on, like I said, doing what I need. But like you said, the transitioning between, and there is a point that you made is that the most important thing is to be patient with the process. Really be patient with yourself, being patient with the process. Because right now, the stage that I'm at, I am really slowing down. I am really digging into my resources. I'm going to go to Barnes and Nobles. I'm quite sure there's still one out there somewhere. They're closing them left and right.
Mhm.
Went to the book section and I want to, find books on this, find resources on this, and really take my time and really read and talk to experts about this and, really be patient with the process and understand what it is that I am doing and why. Because like you said, some people look at the end game or, but like you said, there might be some other adjustments like transitioning from jobs, relocation. There might be other aspects to this exit plan that, you need to do. I say move slowly, you know. That's exactly what it is I'm doing. I'm not disappointed that, in the beginning, I had all this steam. I still have the steam.
Mhm.
But now I understand that I need to move so slowly by step, constantly talking to people who are retired, talking to people who have LLCs like I do, and getting involved in that way. and then, making sure that I complete one goal
Yeah,
before
I
I
think a
move on
very
to the
important thing you
next.
just mentioned there is talking to people who have done it. So if you have a specific goal that you want to get to, it's good to find someone who has done that or who is in the position that you would like to be in. Talk to them, see how they are, see how their
Absolutely.
day to day is. I think that's very important, even in creating any type of plan, whether transition, whether it be the exit plan, to talk to people who's in that area. I think you'll get a lot of insights into that.
And that's retirement specialists. When you look at these people and when you see people saying they're building a portfolio, for retirement, there are retirement specialists. The age of technology is wonderful. Google is wonderful, but you know, I want to build something that's going to be lasting, and I can move on and be very versatile with. So I would say move slowly. I'm enjoying the research part. That's one of the things that I'm enjoying right now. As I said, for me, I'm working on one goal at a time. At first, it was the new technology, a computer, and it was specific to my needs. I needed a computer printer. I needed to build an office space within my own apartment. I learned that I needed to get rid of, throw out a lot of stuff, and I did, and I felt really good about that because, like you said, I am transitioning into something new, and I needed that space, and it gave me such pleasure to do it, and I continue to see where I'm going to, benefit, so I'm doing one goal at a time, one area at a time, prioritizing what is important first,
Mhm.
and definitely connecting with people, like you, as you say, myself, you're my friend and you've given me, but also connecting with other women who are in transition and LLC and who are authors. And that's how I learned how to sell my own books on my own. Really didn't know how to do that, but now I'm learning step by step to do that. What would you say to our audience about? We said make adjustments, it's okay to step back and push the reset button. What would you say to that? Like with someone who, they have to make an adjustment, it's not working out the way that they thought it was going to work out. What would you say to that aspect of the transitional exit plan? Because that's what I'm going to call it now. I'm going to call it the transitional exit plan.
So I would say the advice I would give is to give yourself grace, to give yourself grace and to keep going even when you feel like like you don't have any type of motivation to do it. So there's two things I would say: to be graceful to yourself, right? Be compassionate towards yourself, right? Because sometimes what happens in these situations, if things are not going the way up, there are some road bumps. It's very hard to be our worst enemy, which would be our own self critique, right? So be compassionate towards yourself and then persistence. If you need to take a day off from it, if you need to rest, if you need to relax, if you need to pause, it's okay to go and to come back to it whenever you feel. But the only side of that is that if you wait too long to come back to it, it could be more discouraging when you do come
Mm,
back to it. So you don't want to have a long period of not coming back to it, right? You give yourself a day or two, whatever time you need, but then you want to come back to it and continue working on it, continue
okay.
adjusting it, continue going, but keep going. But the main thing is during this whole process is to be graceful towards yourself and show yourself some compassion during this time.
Yeah. Absolutely. I carry a book with me. I have a book with me, a little notebook, that I carry with me that I write things down in and reflect in it, every day and look at, what I have done to achieve something for that day. That's definitely what I do. Like you said, show yourself some grace, some kindness. One thing I would say about exit plans and vision boards and, goals that people set, I always say that not everybody needs to know what it is that you're doing. And the reason why I brought up that point is because I have very few people in my circle right now. I think it's about four people in my circle right now who know about my exit plan. I am very selective of talking to people about my goals, my ambitions, and things that I am planning. Okay, because the reason why I'm saying that is because not to be negative, but I have selected those people because I know that they would understand about what I want to achieve, how I want to achieve, and they would have something very positive to share and to help steer me in that right direction. What do you have to say about, like, because people might be married in families, partnerships. I'm single. It's just me and my sidekick Pina, who's laying here on the couch sleep, and my exit plan also affects him. Where I'm going to relocate and everything. I don't have a partner where I have to think about, "Oh, how is this exit plan going to affect them?" So, what would you say to people who are planning a transitional exit plan, and how would they go about sharing their information with others, but not really sharing too much?
I think sometimes it's kind of good to move in silence in a way when it comes to your goals, your dreams, and your visions, right? So, for instance, if you know what your vision, what your end goal is, right? And you know the purpose and the reason why you are doing what you're doing, right? And what happens at times, sometimes, depending on who you share the information with, right? It may come with some positives and, you're great, I'm happy for you, continue, some people who would be encouraging you. But you might also have those who might, question about what it is that you're doing. Now, if you're starting something new, for instance, starting an LLC, you're starting something new, you might have some doubts. You might have some self doubt, some imposter syndrome. You might have some of these things that's going on, right? And when you share it with someone, and if they give you something that's like a negative or say something that's in a negative light, then you might start questioning yourself more. So then what I will say to you is if you are telling people about your plans, your goals, your visions, right? Ask yourself a question of how is this benefiting me? How is this helping me get to my goal? And what is the purpose of me sharing that information? So are you sharing the information for validation? Are you sharing the information to brag? Are you sharing the information, because you're excited and you want to share it with everyone and that's your call? But what is the purpose behind you sharing that? Because not
Mhm.
everyone is going to be happy for whatever you want to do. So you got to be able to pick the audience that you want to share your stuff with and you let them know and you go about that. But it's really very crucial. I mean, for me, I honestly believe in, choosing your circle and you choose who you want to share it with and the purpose behind that.
Absolutely. So we're almost just about to the end of our conversation here about the transitional exit plan. I am grateful for Randy's time today. I just want to just throw in this last bit about the types of exit plan. And, it might be moving location, it might be divorce, changing careers, selling property, retirement. Listen, here's the biggest one: downsizing from a full time job to a part time job. Early retirement. It might be a family who decided that they're going to transition from two income household to a one income household. It could be moving in an elderly family member into your home. The transitional exit plan could be just about anything that affects life. I've had a conversation with a young lady about that. I was getting ready to do this, and she said she thinks college students should definitely have a transitional exit plan after by the time they're junior year. You know, they should start thinking about, because, a lot of them think, I'm going to come out of college and I'm going to get into my chosen career because I studied this major for all the years. And then the disappointment may come sometimes that you don't get into that career. And she brought up a very valid point because she has children, and she was saying, like, she thought that college students, especially when they get into their junior year, they should start thinking about a transitional exit plan. So that is another category that I am going to add to that. So how would you sum up this whole entire theme that we've been talking about the exit plan?
I would sum that up by saying, if you have a goal, go after that specific goal, but you want to do it with intention. I would say reflect, put it down on paper, do SMART goals, which is more goals that are more realistic, measurable, right? Goals like that. And then you continue to to assess that specific plan every 3 to 6 months. What I would also say to sum this up is that during the process of doing this, things might change. There might be detours, there might be roadblocks. Don't give up. be persistent, but most of all, be graceful and be compassionate toward yourself in this time. Seek out support during the process. Speak to those who are already in the field or trying to, or where you are and where you're trying to be. Speak to people from those perspectives, and then also pay attention to your audience in terms of what you share and what you do not share. And I think there you have it.
Great. Thank Randy for joining us on this conversation about the transitional exit plan. We're going to come back to you in the near future, and we're going to be talking about the pros and cons list. Yeah, I'm telling you, I have learned so much. Our friendship has blossomed into, very supportive, deep, honored, friendship. And I'm learning a lot in this stage of my life. And we're going to come back to you about the pros and cons list because I am using this pros and cons list in every area of my life. And these are things that I've never thought about applying, techniques and methods that I never thought about applying to my life. And it makes reflection and thinking and transitioning and exiting and, just achieving goals a whole lot easier. No, I wouldn't say easier, but it just makes it better when you have time for this deep reflection and you're not just jumping into things without really giving it deep thought. So thank you very much, Franny, for joining this podcast. I would like to say to my audience, thank you. Make sure that you subscribe, like, share. Conversations with JR could be found on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Until the next time, make sure that the conversation that you are having with others and with yourself is a healing one. Thank you for listening, and until the next time.
And thank you